Okay, so tonight's the time that we arrived at Mount Sinai like a one person with one heart. And Hashem said, because you are like one person with one heart, therefore the time has come I could finally give you the Torah. Till this point, we were all, whenever we traveled, there was arguments. And Hashem said, now that you're all united together, Hashem said, therefore I can now give you the Torah. So on this theme, I want to share with you a few stories. First story I just heard this past Shabbos from Chaim Oshkovitz. True story he said about himself. It's an amazing story. Chaim worked for Reb Zalman Roth at the plumbing company of Reb Zalman in Los Angeles. And this is many years ago. And he got an assignment to put in a water heater in a vacant apartment in Los Angeles. So the issue was that this vacant apartment, he was given the address, but the Reb Zalman told him that he doesn't really know how he can get in there because he doesn't have the access to the apartment, but he has to get in there somehow. He has to break into the apartment. The problem was he had the wrong address. So he went to the apartment. He tried the key, didn't work. He went to the window, and he broke the window, and he jumped in backwards into the apartment, and he was greeted by an African American gentleman with a gun. You are a robber, get out of my house. So he was so frightened, instead of saying, I'm not a robber, I'm a plumber, he said, I'm not a plumber, I'm a robber. I said, yes, that's why I'm going to shoot you. He said, no, I understand, I'm a plumber, my tools, I've given this address, the wrong address. The guy, took him a while, but eventually he believed him. And then he says, hey, you must be Jewish, aren't you? He says, yeah, I am Jewish. He says, oh, he calls his wife. His wife was Jewish. And they had a 17-year-old son. And he said to his wife, this guy's Jewish, you're Jewish, right? And so, because of this encounter, this fateful encounter, this family, the husband, the wife, and their son learned about Shabbos candles, and he started putting on tefillin. And they became very, very close because of this encounter. And it makes you think about this idea of all like one person with one heart, and how Hashem reaches out to us and inspires us and brings us to certain places that we wouldn't plan on going, in order that every Jew should be there. And as the Rebbe said, it's so important every Jew be there on the anniversary when Torah is given this coming Friday. So Hashem puts people in our life, and we have to make opportunities to share this message with anyone we can, so every Jew is really there. On that note, I want to share with you two more stories. This first story is about Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank. He was a prominent rabbi in Israel, and his grandson, Yaakov Frank, when Begin became the prime minister, Yaakov Frank was a rabbi in Petach Tikva. He was involved in settling various parts of Israel after the Six-Day War, and he was invited to speak to the Rebbe because of his position in the prime minister's office. So when Rebbe spoke to him, Rebbe asked him, are you perhaps related to Tzvi Pesach Frank? Tzvi Pesach Frank was a prominent rabbi in Israel in the earlier years in Israel in the 20s. He says, yes, I'm actually the oldest grandson of Rabbi Frank. And the Rebbe asked him, please share with me something about your grandfather. So he shared with the Rebbe the following story. He said that in the 20s, in Hebron, there was a yeshiva that was led by a man named Menachem Mendel Epstein. Menachem Mendel Epstein was a very dedicated teacher, but he had a hard time keeping these American boys in Hebron because everyone was concerned that because of the rising tensions between the Jews and the Arabs, everyone was wondering that perhaps it wouldn't be a good place for the boys to study and they should leave and go back to America. So one couple sent a letter to the yeshiva asking their son to come back home. And Rabbi Epstein tasked Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank, who was also working in yeshiva, to write a letter back to the parents and tell them that they're okay, there's no problem, they can stay in Hebron, nothing's going to happen to them. And he wrote a letter. And because of the letter that he wrote, the parents agreed to let their son stay. Unfortunately, on the 18th day of Av in 1929, there was a massacre in Hebron. 67 Jews were killed. Among them were 24 students in this yeshiva. And among them was a child of these parents who were concerned about their son. So Tzvi Pesach Frank, this rabbi, Yaakov Frank, is telling the Rebbe how his grandfather, for 30 years, it plagued him, this event. It bothered him to no end. He felt that he was responsible because he wrote this letter. And he couldn't come to himself. Anyways, Rabbi Yaakov Frank told the Rebbe that he was once called back to serve in the army as a reservist, and came back from the reserves to work in the Dumi Luim in Israel. And because it was raining so intensely, he was they canceled the practice training that they were going to do that day, and everyone was like running for cover to go to protect themselves from the rain. And so when he ran away from the rain, he came into this shelter from the rain, and he met some American journalists. And they start talking to each other. It's raining for a while. They're there for a long time. They start talking to each other. And the journalist hears from Rabbi Frank about who he is. And he says, "Oh, I want to tell you, I know that student. That student is actually my family." He said that after the parents lost their child, they lobbied the American government very strongly to tell the British government, who was then in charge of Israel, to not allow these kind of things to happen. This massacre happened under the eyes of the British government. And because of this boy's parents, the American government actually did lobby England, and England put on a new High Commissioner, Arthur, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Arthur something, Chop, and he made sure that there was first of all, the British government expanded the amount of visas that were allotted to Jews to come to Israel. Second of all, they stopped letting the violence happen. It was all because of their son's death. So their son's death actually saved many lives. So this was very reassuring for Rabbi Yaakov Frank, and he wanted to share this with his grandfather. But he was planning to go to Israel, to Yerushalayim for Shabbos anyways. So he's thinking, why should I rush to Yerushalayim now? But then he had a thought, like, my grandfather's in agony for 30 years about the story. I'm going to go to him right now. It was Thursday night. His wife said, we're going there for Shabbos. You can go there Shabbos. You go there every Shabbos morning. I'm going there right now. He goes there. He tells his grandfather what happened. And he tells grandfather how this event had a very positive result, and it saved many, many more lives. And his grandfather, with tears in his eyes, thanked him. And that Shabbos, it was the 21st of Kislev in 1969. He went to his grandfather's house that Shabbos morning, and he was greeted by his sister. His sister said, unfortunately, their grandfather had just passed away. So he told this whole story to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe said, this is what I encourage my Chassidim all the time, that a mitzvah comes up, should never delay it. A mitzvah comes up, you should always grab the opportunity. You don't know if this opportunity is, how long you'll have it for. And besides the fact that the Rambam says that every good thing you do adds to the scale of merit and brings salvation to the world, and the next good thought you have could tip the scale and bring Mashiach. But besides that, if you have an opportunity to help another person spiritually, you don't know when that opportunity will how long that will last, and if this is the only chance. So Rebbe said, this is what I'm trying to tell my Chassidim. They should work. Opportunity comes up, Yafa Shachas Koidim, as fast as possible. Which brings me to our featured story tonight. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. This story was featured in My Story Volume 2 from Gem. And it's about a woman named Henny Carneal, who was a educator. She and her husband came from a Israeli Zionist movement group called Poal HaMizrachi. And when they became more religious, they started teaching Torah in Jerusalem. And when they became religious, they asked the Rebbe where they should settle, which is they stay in Jerusalem, and the Rebbe advised them that they should go to Kfar Maimon. They should move to Kfar Maimon and take positions as teachers there. And they really didn't know what their role was to be over there, because it didn't seem like fertile soil for teaching what they were familiar with, the teaching of Chabad Hasidus. But the Rebbe told them to go there, and it was really a natural fit because that's where they came from, but it just was unpleasant because they didn't know what their role was, and they discovered a lot of things that they could do. First of all, she discovered issues with the observance of family purity in that village, and she encouraged the women there to, she brought a teacher there that everyone respected, and she also became a mikveh lady there. And her husband gave Torah classes, and it was very pleasant. They were very, very successful. And hold on a second. Okay. So it was said that they should teach by being examples. Number one way to teaching someone else is by being an example. And their son didn't want to stay there. He wanted to go to a more religious school. And their son, a little boy, he wrote a letter to the Rebbe saying to the Rebbe, I don't want to be here. I want to be in a more religious place. And the Rebbe wrote back to him, your role is to inspire the people in the school to be, your role is to inspire everybody. And his first day of school, he tells his teacher, I'm here to inspire you. And then the Rebbe said, and after school, you should ask your parents to teach you more. And he did. And he really was a real emissary of the Rebbe in that school. He brought boys home. Eventually, his parents made 2 classes, one for boys, one for girls. A library was open because of their efforts. And it was all because the Rebbe said, this boy, you're meant to be an emissary, you're meant to be an inspiration. And that's what he did. He inspired that teacher who he told it to on day one. He managed to inspire her as well. So at that time, the family was growing. They were living in a rental. And they didn't know what to do because they were living in this rented apartment. But on the other hand, they needed to expand. The Rebbe said they should build their home, even though there's no way to recover investment in a rented property. The Rebbe said they should build their home, they should expand it with joy and gladness of heart. And they did. They didn't know why and how does that make sense. You're investing in someone else's property, but they did. They expanded their home. And you'll see later on in the story how that is a very, very interesting turn of events that happened as a result of that. Anyways, after she had a child, and she came back from maternity leave in 1974, the Department of Education assigned her to go 5 miles away from Gaza. They asked her to take this position. This was a position, she was teaching for many years. She was a veteran teacher. They wanted her to take a very hard role. What was the role? She was going to teach teenagers, boys and girls, between the ages of 14 and 16. 2 teachers already quit. They needed special education. They were living in foster homes. They were really not able to learn in a regular classroom setting. And it was a very challenging thing. And they were asking her, can you take on this position in Tacoma? And she didn't know what to do. She said, I have to ask the Rebbe first. She asks the Rebbe, and the Rebbe says to her she should take the position, and she should make sure to share with the students stories of Hasidim, stories of tzaddikim, Hasidic stories, to inspire them to pray, to inspire them to give tzedakah. And she did. She told them stories, and she was successful. And the kids loved her stories so much that she would tell them that whenever they have good behavior, she'll tell them a story if they behave well. And this went on for a while. And she said, just to give you an example of the kind of environment that she was in, there was one time she was teaching, and there was a fight, and one kid picked up a chair and threw the chair at her. And the chair missed her because she ducked. And when she ducked, the chair broke the window, and there's shards of glass all over her desk. But she thought this was like the students wanted this to be like a battle of wills, see who has a stronger will. So she ignored the whole thing. She kept on teaching as if nothing happened. And they said, okay, she finished teaching. Now tell us a story. She said that day she didn't tell them a story. And she came back the next day. There was totally radically changed behavior for the better. And one of the students, when she walked in the next day, he said to her, "We feel you love us." That's what he said. "We feel you love us." She was very successful with this group of troubled youth. And she taught them for 1 year. And then after a year, this program disbanded. Most of the students went on to religious high schools. But there was one student whose mother was married to an Arab in Be'er Sheva. And this girl went back home to her mother. And she went to visit this girl in this Arab home. The Arab sees her, and the Arab says to her, "I know who you are. I know where you live. If you don't leave my house and never come back again, I will personally go to your house and kill you." That's what the Arab told her. So she knew what to do. So she wrote to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said to her, "Do you know the birthdays of the birthday of this girl?" And she said she did, because she would always make a celebration for every child's birthday. So the Rebbe said, "You should make sure to say the Tehillim for this girl. You know how old she is? You know when her birthday is? So since you're supposed to say the Tehillim based upon your age, so if you're 13, you say Tehillim number 14. If you're 14, say Tehillim number 15, because you're going into your 15th year of life." The Rebbe said, "Say your Tehillim, and that's all you should do." So that's what she did. For 14 years, she said Tehillim for this girl. Every single day, she said this girl's Tehillim for her age, and she switched every year on her birthday for 14 years. And she thought she would probably say this girl's Tehillim for the rest of her life. But then her husband taught a Torah class, and at the end of the class, a woman comes over to her husband and says, "Hey, did your wife ever teach in Tekuma?" He says, "Yes." He says, I'm her student. And he put her in touch with his wife. This girl, Baruch Hashem, through this incredible organization called Yad La'achim, that rescues Jews who are in these kind of fortunate circumstances entangled with Arabs and Arab families, they rescued her from the Arabs' home, and they were able to rehabilitate her. She was able to get married, and by the time that she met Mrs. Carneal, she already was married with a daughter. So this was really something that was her heart's desire fulfilled, praying for this girl for 14 years, and now she saw that this girl was okay, and it really highlights this theme that I'm talking about how when God gave us the Torah, every Jew had to be there, and the Rebbe sees exactly what this teacher had to do to reach this person's soul, to pray for her every day. I forgot to mention that the Rebbe said when she took on the position, words that come from the heart enter the heart. And you could see that she was successful in reaching this girl's heart, and in the kind of life that she had and the way she grew up. So, after a while, they had an opportunity to move to Kfar Chabad. And the Rebbe was consulted, should they move to Kfar Chabad? And the Rebbe said, if your wife agrees, only if your wife agrees. She agreed, but her husband said, to move to Kfar Chabad, we need to have 25,000 liras, the currency in Israel at that time, in order to take a down payment in this home of Kfar Chabad. So how are they going to afford it? But he didn't want to bother the Rebbe about it. They were giving the blessing. He said, if the Rebbe give a blessing, for sure there's a way that's going to work. That's what he said. That's what her husband said. The Rebbe gave a blessing to move to Kfar Chabad. The Rebbe didn't say how they should do it, but he wasn't going to bother the Rebbe about it. If the Rebbe said to move to Kfar Chabad, for sure there'll be a way to make this work. What happens? Unbelievable. Remember the Rebbe said that they should renovate their home that they were renting? So this yeshiva wanted to move into their apartment, to their whatever home that they had, and the yeshiva paid for the renovations that they made in order to be able to take over their apartment as is. And guess how much the renovations, how much they offered? 25,000 liras. Exactly the amount that they needed to make the down payment to Kfar Chabad. So they're in Kfar Chabad, and there was a little bit of a change because they were like the outreach people, right? They were the ones who were teaching Torah to these troubled youth and doing all these and going to Poel Mizrachi. And now they're in Kfar Chabad. It was a very big change in energy. And they asked them, what should we do? They felt like they weren't doing their mission. They're supposed to share Torah and be emissaries of the Rebbe. And now they don't have this whole kind of dynamic. So the Rebbe said, that they should focus on their own children's education. And they were like shocked because their own children were going to the best schools in Israel. They're going to these really incredible schools in Kfar Chabad. And it really was an important lesson for her, she said, because you often think if you're sending your child to a really good school, so then whatever's going on with your child, it's the role of the school to take care of. But she understood from the Rebbe's instruction that it's her and her husband that have to take responsibility for their child's education. They can never cast aspersion on the school. It's their issue, whatever's going on with their child. It really was very helpful to guide them in life. Anyways, her husband said to her one day, you know, you've never been to the Rebbe. We were emissaries of the Rebbe all our lives, but you've never been to the Rebbe. And they couldn't really afford it, but they managed to find this travel agent, this religious travel agent in Tel Aviv, who agreed to take payments on a ticket in installments, and they got a ticket to go to the Rebbe. And then when they came to in the audience of the Rebbe, she was so emotional, Mrs. Carneal, she said she had to hold on to something so she shouldn't fall down. And the Rebbe asked her, are you satisfied in Kfar Chabad? So she told the Rebbe, it's good for me. So the Rebbe said, good has no limits. So if it's good, it can get better and better. Then the Rebbe asked her, how are the children acclimating to the new environment? So she says the boys really enjoy it. Everyone's happy, especially the boys. So the Rebbe said, make sure the girls are happy too. Then the Rebbe said, are they all lighting Shabbos candles? So she says, yes. But then the Rebbe asked again, do all the girls light? And she says again, yes. Then the Rebbe asked a third time, do all the girls light? And she says yes a third time. So the Rebbe smiled, laughed sort of, then took out $5. The Rebbe said she had 3 girls and 2 boys. So the Rebbe spread out the $5 like a fan. The Rebbe says, give the girls $1 and give the 2 boys $1. We don't want the boys to be left out. They should also get $2, give it to them as well. And then she left the Rebbe's room. She knew exactly what the Rebbe was talking about. What was the Rebbe talking about? Her youngest child wasn't 3 years old yet. And so she didn't light Shabbos candles yet. She knew how to say the blessings. The Rebbe says you should start lighting, just parenthetically, the Rebbe says you should start lighting Shabbos candles as soon as you're able to say the blessings. And the first time a girl lights Shabbos candles, she should say the blessing of Shechayanu, thanking Hashem for reaching this occasion. So you don't have to wait till the age of 3. So then she realized that Rebbe was talking about her youngest girl, and she should for sure light the candle. And so she wrote a letter to the Rebbe, telling the Rebbe that she understood what the Rebbe meant, and the Rebbe thanked her and acknowledged her, thanked her for writing, and then her daughter, of course, began lighting Shabbos candles. The story's not over. The Rebbe gave her $5, right? So her custom was she gave each child $1 when they got married. For some reason, not known to her, she somehow decided she'll give the girls the $1 when they got married, but she never gave the boys the $1. So she had $2 for her 2 boys. She never gave it to them. So one year in 2005, before Passover, she's cleaning for Passover, and she finds these $2 that she had never given to her boys. So she called over her son Aaron. Aaron gets his $1, the youngest son. Then she called her older son, Benny, who is a emissary of the Rebbe in Gedera. And she said, the Rebbe gave you $1, I never gave it to you. He started to cry. She was astonished. She didn't know why he was starting to cry. He came over the next day, told her the story. She said, Benny told her that there's a couple in his community that really wants a blessing for children. And he told this couple how important it is to keep the laws of family purity. And if they keep these laws of family purity, this is a very appropriate vessel to have children. So they told Benny, we learned a little bit more about it, and we still don't have children. Benny said to them, to encourage them, he said to them, I'll give you, if you commit to keep the laws of family purity exactly, I'll give you my most precious possession. I'll give you my $1 from the Rebbe. It was very important to him, but it was even more important to him that this couple should be blessed with children. And so apparently it was the right incentive, because this man and his wife started learning the laws of family purity, and his wife was blessed to become pregnant. And so he realized he had to fill his part of the bargain. He pushed it off and pushed it up, but he had to finally do it. And he gave the guy the $1. As soon as he gave the $1 to this guy, 5 minutes later, his mother, Henny Carneal, called him and told him that she has the dollar that the Rebbe had given him many years before. She called him 5 minutes later. Anyways, point is, my dear friends, we're now at Mount Sinai. We're at the Temple Mount, like one man with one heart. We should use the remaining days we have till Shavuos to reach out to other Jews and to invite everyone to be there to hear the Ten Commandments, and in that merit, and we should merit tonight to celebrate in Yerushalayim with Mashiach, and automatically on Shavuos already will be in Jerusalem. Have a wonderful day, and may God bless us all to receive the Torah with joy and inspiration. Good Yantiv and good Vach.